Welcome to the center of the universe and the home of the 18-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. This is the X's and Argos podcast with Ben Grant and JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos post-game reaction podcast brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing as the Argos win 39-36 over the Edmonton Elks. And JB, that was a heck of a game. We'll get more into it in just a moment. But before we do, I want to talk briefly about Something in the Water Brewing. We were down there pre-game today, as we often are before the game. It's just steps from BMO Field. We met a bunch of listeners, which was really cool. I love when you guys come up and say hi, talk to us, tell us what you're doing, where you're coming from. You know, we had listeners coming from the East End, from the West End. Really great to see. I love being able to actually spend time and meet with the people that listen, because we don't get to interact very often. And so down at Something in the Water, it's the perfect opportunity. Great beer at Something in the Water. It's just steps from the practice facility at Lamport Stadium, and it's a nice, easy walk to BMO Field. That's what we did tonight. Maybe that's what you will do on Friday night as the Argos get set to host the Montreal Alouettes next week. But we got this game to talk about. JB, this was a wild one. I don't think either of us foresaw there being 500 points scored, 39-36. What'd you make of this one?
I mean, I think it's exciting that Toronto is able to score so many points. It's a little worrying that Toronto and Edmonton seem to be very, very similar. I don't know necessarily if that's what you're looking for, but they know how to finish games. We've watched them do it over and over again. This is now 11 straight home victories. That doesn't happen by accident. I think the calmness of the organization, the way they knew they could finish that game with 2 minutes left, I think really came through. And Edmonton, as we've talked about lots of times, just doesn't have that tool yet. So, it was very exciting to watch.
Very exciting. I know everyone here got their money's worth. It was the pride game here at BMO Field. They've always done such a good job of this, but it's been getting better every year. I love what they had going on tonight. The celebrations down in the shipyard. You had the rainbow fireworks, of course, and all the merchandise available, like the hat that I'm currently wearing. They had the socks, the keychain, the T-shirts. It was a wonderful night. And it couldn't have been, the crowd here tonight could not have been treated to a better show. It came down to the wire. Now, I want to just point out, though, because like you're saying, you don't necessarily think we want to be the same as the Elks. These are not the same Edmonton Elks that we've seen the last few years, that were just getting blown out, that were the doormats of the CFL. That's not this team. Now, this Elks team does not know how to win. That's clear. They have shot themselves in the foot in each of their first 3 games to now find themselves 0-3, but they've been in them. Like they should have won that game against Montreal. Montreal has played like the best team in the league so far, and Edmonton was right there with them. So if you're saying, well, the Elks are the same as, so similar to the Argos, the Elks were also very similar to the Alouettes, who dismantled the Blue Bombers and just decimated I was going to call them the Rough Riders, the Red Blacks in Montreal. So I think Edmonton can play with anybody. I'm just not sure they can beat anybody, because they always shoot themselves in the foot. And here, yet again, they were in an advantageous position where Toronto was punting late in the game. It is so, just before I finish that sentence, I'm in like a storm right here. I decided it would be a good idea to record this outside. I'm now regretting that decision, as I've got like hurricane level winds that are blowing chairs around, and my table may take off suddenly. So if I disappear, that's what has happened. But yeah, they found ways to lose the game themselves. Today, it was Joel DeBlanco, the first overall draft pick, a guy I love as a player, but he's in there on special teams, almost blocks the punt from John Haggerty, but as he is sliding along this grass, slides into his leg, and that's a dangerous play. You can end up with a broken ankle, a broken leg, and a play like that very easily. And it was the right thing to throw that flag, and that was their week 3 version of shooting themselves in the foot. They just continue to do it. It's a good team that doesn't know how to win, and the Argos are a good team that finds a way to win, seemingly, and they did it again tonight against the Elks.
Yeah, clearly offensively, they're in pretty good shape. We'll talk about, like, Carey looks great. Adamaboye also really looks fast and light. And receiver wise, they even without Daniels tonight, they were able to spread it around and to make some big plays. Obviously the secondary is the area that's going to have to be rejigged and reworked as the season goes on.
Yeah, let's talk about that secondary because it did not look good early on. Edmonton, I thought, dominated that first quarter. It looked like they were going to end up driving up and down the field at will in that first quarter. They were picking on Benji Franklin specifically. He had a very rough first half. He picked it up a little bit in the second half. It wasn't a perfect second half by any means, but that was a rough first half. And I think, having two new corners, guys that haven't had a ton of CFL experience, it is really difficult. This is a much wider field and it takes some adjustment time. You've got, receivers with waggles and all sorts. There's so much going on. It's difficult. And maybe it was a bit ambitious to think that Benji Franklin and Leonard Johnson could just kind of go out there and be fine. They had some struggles in week one, but I thought it was actually more of a problem today. And it wasn't communication. Those were the week one issues. This was being out of position. It was getting stuck looking into the backfield, thinking, well, the play should be over now. And then, it wasn't, and allowing Dylan Mitchell, Eugene Lewis to get in behind you. These were concerns, I think. And is that how you would look at these two corners today? I think most specifically Benji Franklin, but is this stuff that you can fix quickly? Is this a long-term concern? How do you read this?
I do think, I do think that, like for Benji Franklin, that's going to be the big question for him. Like the league will have seen this film. If they want to play more man, he's going to have to be able to carry his guy down the field. So I think so. I don't think that the errors are so bad that he's constantly out of position, or that he was looking for somebody else. I do think they can fix it, but they really need to add another. I think they're going to need to add another veteran to the secondary. I think they need it. I don't think they're going to be able to play the whole season with such inexperience at corner.
Yeah, my concern was there was a moment in that second quarter where Franklin got burned, and it wasn't that, again, I'm not giving up at all on Benji Franklin. I like him as a player. I love his speed. But I felt like there was a moment there where he needed to come out of the game just simply reset. And they didn't have anyone they could put in. There was no answer.
They had nowhere to hide him.
And so I was looking up and down the depth chart to say, well, if you brought him out, let's say you sat him for a series, well, who would you put in? And they don't really, like, it would have been Mason Pierce, but now you're opening up a whole other hole on the defense. So there wasn't really that. And I think you're right. I think they need to find another corner they can dress just in case you have a game like this and you can bring him out for a series and say, okay, Benji, you got to reset. Let's go out there again. And he kind of did. I thought the second half, he did reset a little bit and got himself together. He made a really nice play late where they were trying to exploit the fact that he'd been beaten deep, and they gunned one out quickly, thinking that, he was going to be playing well off the ball, but he came right in and blew up that play behind the line of scrimmage. So he did rebound, but not, that first half, there just weren't a lot of options. And you look up and down that depth chart, there's not much you can do. And so I think if you're going to go with two young corners, there needs to be a veteran that you can at least put in at some point. But even, suppose one of those guys got injured, what was the answer going to be there? And so,
yeah, it's really, really thin right now.
Yeah.
And even like on the plays he was beaten, he reacted late. It wasn't that he couldn't keep up with this guy, or he opened up too late, or just a pure speed athleticism issue. You can see on the plays that he did not get into downfield mode fast enough, and wasn't entirely sure he was taking. Looked like there was a little delay about whether he was taking them all the way down the field or not. So I think you can fix that. I'd be more concerned if he just simply got beat. Like that a guy ran past him, and that was not the case. But
the thing is,
it's going to have to be cleaned up.
I would also be concerned if he were just too physically slow. And that's not the case either. Like, this is a guy that ran a 4.2, 4.3. He's got speed all over the place. But I think sometimes players like that, they're used to being able to use their speed to catch up. And so sometimes they try to bait quarterbacks into making a throw, knowing they can recover and make a play. And at this level, you can't do that. And so,
and I think the strength of McLeod's arm caught them by surprise.
especially on those long sideline routes.
Like in the out routes, like that, the speed that ball, because again, like that's one of those issues. Sometimes you have a running quarterback. If you don't have a guy who's fast, you can't do it in camp. You can't, replicate it. And the Argos don't have anybody who can replicate, the sauce that McLeod can put on the ball. And everything happens faster. You think you have it. It's like, no, that ball got there half a second earlier than you thought it would, because, he can really zip it. And you don't have anybody on the practice squad who can zip it like McLeod. It did look like it caught them by surprise that he could basically flick the ball downfield in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and that showed up as well on that play that was called back. That was originally a touchdown to Dylan Mitchell, where Franklin seemed to take a swat at the ball. It looked like he got caught off guard by how fast that ball got there too, because normally you would stick out your arm. You wouldn't swat and try and connect with it like a baseball on a baseball bat. You would hold out your arm and prevent it from getting to the receiver. But I think it just got on him so quickly, and that caught him off guard. Fortunately, it was brought back because his hand hit Mitchell's helmet on the way to the ground, and the Argos were a bit lucky there. But yeah, that was not his best game. But again, to get out of that with an Argos win, that's what's key. If you lose the game because of one player, that can really impact a player, and that can throw them off. But they won the game, and so these can now be learning opportunities. And just like we saw with the mental mistakes in week one, where we said, yeah, the secondary was a bit iffy, but they've got a lot of film that they can now go back and go over and fix things. They've got the same thing now. They can look, they've got to win. There's no stress. You didn't cost us points or anything like that. That's what they can sit down and say to him. And now let's look over the film and see, let's look at your positioning. Let's look at, when a guy approaches you like this, when a guy, cuts inside and then out again, or in this situation, this down and distance, or if you're up against a quarterback like McLeod, this is how fast the ball is going to get there. So it ends up being something that you can learn without feeling the weight or the pain of having cost your team a victory. And that puts you in a much better place to learn.
I think, it's going to be a defensive back. We'll see what the waiver wire is tomorrow, but it's going to be defensive back meeting week. Because, the line kept the run game in check, and the line, didn't quite get as much pressure as you'd hope, but, they were down flow. But the line did their job. The backers did their job. The secondary, there was that touchdown that would just look like terrible zone. The Geno Smith touchdown. The
Geno Lewis touchdown.
Geno Lewis, I know, I always call Geno Smith.
Yeah.
Where just nobody with them.
Yeah, and there was nothing complex. He was just going down the sideline, but it was the starting position. It was almost like, was that Franklin too, or was that Johnson? I feel like that was Franklin as well.
I don't think it was Franklin.
No? Okay, so whoever that was, maybe that was Johnson on that one, but it just felt like he wasn't aware of how far away the sideline was, where he just didn't think someone could be that far outside of him based on where he was.
Yeah, I think just the being in space in the end zone is a very weird thing for American players. Like normally you're playing, like everybody is basically within an arm's length of you, and people can't fade away from you. But in fact, the outside receiver was, 7 yards away from him. I exactly that. I just don't think he felt there was that much room behind him, and there was, in fact, lots of room.
I don't know what my audio sounds like, but I feel like one of those weather reporters that is like on the site of a hurricane or something like that. Just hopefully that's not coming through sound wise, but it is something up here. Like everything around me has blown away. It's just me left. Everything else is gone. So
what did you think of the double pass in the shadow of your own uprights?
So, okay, let's talk about that play. So the play was Deontay McMahon takes the ball, runs wide to his right, and then looks to throw it deep downfield to Tommy Neal. So I saw the Argos run this play at practice, and it worked at practice once, And then the second time they ran it, it was an overthrow. And I was thinking, I don't know if they're going to, because often you'll see a play in practice and they don't run it. Sometimes for years. Sometimes I'll see a play and it's like 3 years later, they finally run it. So I didn't really think that was something that might be coming this week. And when they ran it this week, I was wondering if maybe the overthrow that occurred in practice was in McMahon's head a little bit, because he underthrew Tommy Neild down the sideline there. But he also did not at all see the safety coming across. Lucas Purifoy
nor should he.
Well, he was waiting in cover one, but that's not a play. You can't read that as a running back. You see your wide open guy. You're not reading the safety. That was a pretty tough one. If he had led him like a quarterback, like if he had led the receiver downfield, that's a touchdown. But it's a lot to ask from McMahon.
Yeah, I thought that was a misstep. I thought that was a little too cute. In the shadow of your own end zone. Like if you're going for a touchdown, okay. But I just think there's way too many things that can go wrong. And you have one of the best safeties, if not the best safety in the league, hiding in the woods.
Yeah, Purifoy played that well.
Yeah, of course he did. He's the best safety in the league. Unless you know for a fact that Purifoy is somewhere else, I don't think you can run that play.
Yeah, that was tough. But on paper, it was correct in that the guy on Neild was gone, right? Like Neild slipped past his guy in man coverage and no one went with him. But you just can't throw the ball that way. And it's a lot to expect a non-quarterback to be able to do that. But I don't know. What I like about it is it's on film and, trick plays. Dinwiddie doesn't run a lot of trick plays. He ran one and it failed. But I think now at least it gives opposing defenses and opposing defensive coordinators something to think about. This is not an offense that's afraid to do something different. And if I can tie that into another kind of trick play that did work and in fact went for a touchdown, how about that run play for Deontay McMahon that was highly unconventional? That was an amazing play on paper, and that did work. So what I mean by that is it was a sweep to the left. So McMahon is Cameron Dukes is in shotgun. McMahon is on his right side. The sweep went to the left wide, but the left guard and left tackle both pulled to the right. And there's two reasons why this is brilliant. So what you're taught on defense, two things. When a guard pulls, if you're a defensive lineman, you're taught to follow that guard, to get on his hip and follow him because he's going to lead you to the ball. And linebackers are taught, if you see a guard pull, go that way. He's leading you to the ball. And that's exactly what happened. The left tackle and the left guard both pulled to the right. Both D linemen go that way. The linebackers go that way. And it's a running play with no blockers whatsoever to the left. And McMahon went untouched all the way down the field for a huge run, a 44-yard touchdown run, in fact. And that's a run that gets full credit to Coach Dinwiddie for his design. McMahon ran it well, but that's a beautiful design, a very risky play to have a running play with no blocking whatsoever. But he knew how Edmonton would respond to that. So if we're gonna punish Coach Dinwiddie for the halfback option, which I think we are, then we also have to give him his laurels for that really clever design. Just some really good X's and O's on that play.
Look, I thought they had a fantastic offensive game plan. They've clearly turned Dukes into Hamilton's next starter.
Stop saying that.
That's a job well done.
Yeah, no, he looks incredible. Again, 18 for 21 tonight. Let's go through some stats. Like Dukes was 18 for 21. We thought his accuracy was great last week. This was even better. And actually two of those were throwaways. There was only one pass that was incomplete where he had a wide open receiver. I think it was Tommy Neild on a dagger concept coming across the middle, wide open, and he sailed it. I mean,
that's a really hard throw, like the over the linebacker and then down, and that's just, to be honest, that's probably a throw he doesn't have in the golf bag.
I don't know. I don't mind him on those mid crossers. I know that was a bit deeper, and you are trying to pull the chute and have that drop in over the backer.
Yeah, he almost did it. I mean, he almost did it, but that's a very hard throw.
It's a tough ball, and he was on point on everything else. Like he was so accurate to be over 85% completions after. We were impressed with week one when he was like, what is this, 78% completion? We're like, whoa, that's something.
Look, and he's my red zone king. He is a red zone king. He just eats in the red zone. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. He just absolutely, whether it's run or pass, he just absolutely crushes the red zone, which was Toronto's biggest flaw last year.
Yeah, he's very good down there. There's two more Cam Dukes plays I want to talk about while we're talking about him. So one, the touchdown pass to Rasheed Bailey, that was a thing of beauty for two reasons. So first of all, the obvious reason, it was a really nice throw, finding Bailey one-on-one in that matchup. That was great. But what was even better was they actually ran a simulated snap on that play. And he got to see not only what the coverage was, but who was coming. And so he knew he had man. He knew he had a great situation for Bailey, but he also knew he wasn't going to have any time to make that throw because Edmonton was sending the house. So he brought in the slot receiver to his right, who didn't look at all excited about suddenly having to block a defensive end. But he brought him in. He's like, I need help. That you got to take that guy. We don't have the numbers here. And it was such a huge thing because that bought him just a split second more time, and he could drop back and put that ball in for Bailey. So that was an extremely intelligent, like high football IQ play to come away with that touchdown. And then the other one on his quarterback draw, which was a design quarterback draw. What I love about this, he didn't just, this is from the 7-yard line, he didn't just take the snap and run. This is a nice play design. They, at the last second, sent McMahon out wide. That brought a linebacker with them, emptied out that middle of the field. But Dukes actually looked that way. So the linebacker who's maybe thinking, I don't know if I can go out there with McMahon, I got to watch Dukes. He's now having to go because Dukes looks like he's going to throw to him. But he never intended on throwing the ball. He's just trying to get rid of that, vacate the middle of the field. And then he tucks it and runs and goes untouched into the end zone. He had another nice run on the 2-point conversion. He played a fantastic game tonight for Toronto.
Yeah. I mean, he's a CFL starter. I know I keep talking about Hamilton, but he's a CFL starter. He's not in Toronto next year. I think, they've done an amazing, I mean, that's the problem when you do an amazing job. You do an amazing job and then people move on. But he is really, I've really come around. He is not, he is not blessed with off the chart athletics, but he is smart and he makes great decisions.
Yeah, and we've seen quarterbacks like that. He's not the prototypical mold. He's not the, made in a lab kind of guy. He doesn't look like the starting quarterback of a pro football team. He doesn't throw 80 yards down the field, but he's highly accurate and highly intelligent. And those two things are the most important things for a quarterback.
Right. And to be deadly within the red zone is a talent. That's the talent that separates starters from backups. Lots of guys can go from the 20 to the 20. But can't get it in the end zone, right? Get down there, cannot complete a pass. And that alone makes him a starter. I just can't get over how good he is at the hardest part of the job.
Let's talk about the rushing yards for the Argonauts, because I thought that was something they did very well. Again, the setup seemed to be Carey is the lead back. He had 19 carries for 104 yards and a touchdown. He had a great night. McMahon used a lot more sparingly, 4 carries for 50. Dan Adeboboye with 2 carries for 15. Dukes had 4 carries for 17. Clearly, Kadeem Carey continues to be he is the Argos running back, but I like where they don't use Adeboboye in the first half. And then he comes in to get those really important long runs to also drain the clock a bit and move the ball once that defense is tired. That's 2 games in a row where they've used that strategy. But yeah, and great blocking too.
And he definitely seems lighter this year. Those are stretch runs. Those are not up the middle. He is turning the corner on teams.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Carey found the outside a couple times on design runs to the inside zones that turned into outside bounces. And Adeboboye can do that as well. He's got some speed. And then we know McMahon could go wide, but they ran McMahon up the middle as well a couple times. So I like that they're keeping defenses honest. They're yeah, we know we've got 3 styles of running back, but that doesn't necessarily mean where they're going or what kind of play they're getting. So I thought that was kind of fun the way they mixed that up. But we got to give a lot of credit to the offensive line. After what I thought was a pretty bad first quarter, that offensive line let up pressure early. There was a couple times where a defensive lineman went untouched into the backfield to sack Dukes, I think twice.
So that early spin move that was, a pretty good spin move, and ended up being a pretty significant sack.
Yeah, and it looked like they had their hands full, but they really kind of got their act together. And from the second quarter onwards, I thought the O-line played extremely well. They had great pass protection. They gave Dukes all sorts of time, but they also opened up huge holes on the ground. We said,
and that the carry touchdown. I mean, they just flat out bullied Edmonton into the end zone.
yeah, I know they just watched them right away.
Edmonton knew it was coming, and they just pushed them 4 yards into the end zone, and we're like, okay, we're going to score a touchdown now.
My one thing for this week was, and I thought it was ambitious, I wanted the Argos running backs to have over 100 yards rushing. I thought that was a big key, and they had that in the first half. And so that just shows you how well this team ran the ball.
And while he didn't run a reverse, he ran a solo reverse.
Yes.
His best return of the night was an individual reverse.
Yeah, that's right. You're one thing with Janarian Grant. It was a kick return that was designed to go left. He started running left. He's like, there's nobody left out this way, and so he cut his field back.
He just reversed it. It's like, here we go.
Yeah, 50 yards. He's such a smooth runner. I love watching him run when he's got space like that.
He was a game changer. I thought that, look, they were in trouble in the first quarter because what we were scared of was that they were getting pinned and they couldn't, they just couldn't get the yardage to flip the field. And basically Edmonton was just going to start on the 50 every drive. And like, obviously that's the problem. And That's what it was looking like. But then he had a great punt return, and it changed everything. And then then Toronto started from the 40, and now they flipped the field and they went down and scored, and it changed the whole tenor and mood of the game, because you can see how valuable having him is. Like, he has to return that ball to the 30. Because when they get pinned down there, it can be a real problem.
And receiving wise, there was no one that really took over the game per se, but I love how Duke spread it around. Without Tavares Daniels out there, he completed passes to 10 different receivers. It's pretty amazing. He only completed 18 passes on 21 throws, but those 18 passes went to 10 different guys, and nobody had more than 3 catches. Coxie, Polk, and Carey each had 3 catches. And then from then on, it's everyone with 2 or 1. I think that's, it's tough for a defense when there's not a single guy that you can focus in on and say, okay, well, we got to take this guy away. You can't do that with Cam Dukes. He'll just throw it to the open guy. He'll make the right read. I love seeing numbers like that. It's okay that the leading receiver had 58 yards. It's okay that the leading receiver had 3 catches. That doesn't matter if you're 18 for 21 and you're putting up 39 offensive points. Yeah, you're in a good spot.
Again, to sing his praises, the fact that he's not locking in on the safety blanket, is incredible. And I am excited about Polk.
Yeah. Oh, he shows little bits, right? He's not. Now, Polk was put in a tough spot today because he had to play in Tavares Daniels' spot in the slot, and Polk doesn't have experience as a slot receiver. He, at Mississippi State and at Cal before that, was an outside guy playing X, sort of where DeMonte Coxie plays, and that's all he had learned during training camp. It was really just this week that he finally got a chance to get some reps at slot back, and it's a whole different game, and he was invisible in the first half, and then he suddenly came to life in that second half and had a couple really big plays that led to that last score.
Yeah,
so,
I think as they get to learn him and he learns, what they want, I do think there's he has the potential to be a force, like to be somebody who is a game changer.
Somehow, without having like elite speed, like he's fast, but he's not. This is not like a 4.2 elite speed kind of guy.
He plays fast.
Yeah, because he's got such good cuts. His route running is spectacular. It's really hard to hang with him. He's going to have to learn that a little bit on this field.
He jumps
with
off
these
the field
rules.
when he has the ball. Like he jumps off the field because whoa, that is one of these things is not like the other.
He may be a candidate for those Ricky Collins Jr. screens that we've been talking about. So maybe they just got to find a way to get the ball in his hands, I think. And that kind of goes against what we're saying with, focusing in on a guy. But I think you need to have more than one target in a half for a guy like that. Now, the question is, like, when you get guys coming back, we got Kevin Mittal coming back at some point, Dave Unger coming back at some point, Tavares Daniels coming back at some point. It's a lot of receivers that are going to be fighting for playing time. And he's making a case for not only being dressed, but he's making a case for being a starter in his limited action in 2 weeks, especially given that he was in a new position this week.
Yeah, I hope they give him more on his plate.
Yeah, for sure. No, it would be great to see him get a bit more workload down this, in the next game. But as I said, I don't want Dukes to just lock in on a guy. Last thing I'll say about Dukes before we move on from the offense and just talk a bit about the D here. You know what I liked about Dukes was two times where plays didn't work. And the reason I liked it was that I think it was two incompletions. He had occasions where he could have run early in the play, where the pocket opened up and he could have taken off, maybe even gotten the first down, but he continued to look downfield. They ended up in incomplete passes. But what I loved about that is so often from running quarterbacks, you'll see as soon as a hole opens up, they forget about the passing game and they just take off. And that's just not an effective way to play quarterback. You need to be a passer first. And so while he may have lost those two first down opportunities, in the long run, that is how you want to see your quarterback play, especially a quarterback who's got wheels like Dukes, who could have had a few more runs, who could have had a few more first downs on the ground. I'm okay with that. I love that he's looking to make a play downfield.
And I don't know if I just noticed it, but I did notice tonight. The announcer went with the long U on the Duke. I like that. I think we should stick with that. I think there's something there.
Yeah, Adam Goss. He'll find
I
a
like
way.
it. I think people will catch on to that as they start to embrace the Duke's revolution.
And everyone else kind of repeating the Dukes chant. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I do like that.
Yeah, I think I liked it. I didn't remember hearing it before. I think he's earned it.
It's not the first time in Adam Goss's career that he has come up with something brilliant. But yeah, best PA announcer in the league. I love that call as well. The long Dukes call. Let's talk about the other side of the ball. There were some problems. We talked about the corners a little bit, but let's give props to a number of the former Argos who had huge nights. McLeod Bethel-Thompson. Like, is it worrying that McLeod was 28 of 38 for 342 yards and 4 touchdowns? Like,
Yeah,
man, that was a guy to have in fantasy.
Of course it is. I mean, I said that from the top. Like, it's it's great they won, but there is work to be done. The secondary is is very new and not particularly good at the moment.
Now, he also threw for over 300 yards against Montreal. Like, he's basically had over 300 yards every game.
Yeah,
like, McLeod is playing good football.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like 4 passing touchdowns. These aren't normal Argo numbers to give up 4 passing touchdowns. But is this a case of just a guy coming playing his former team, playing out of his head? This is not something that's going to be duplicated every week. We're going to have to wait and see. They've got this big matchup with Montreal. I think that will go a long way in terms of a litmus test showing us who this Argos defense is.
Well, I do know, like, across the league, like they've talked about this in the stats package, that across the league, that the quarterback ratings are the highest they've ever been.
Yeah.
Like, so there's clearly something afoot that the offensive coordinators have a step up on the defensive guys, that basically, guys are putting up 350 and 3 touchdowns for every team in the league.
It's not the chip in the ball.
Defenses are having a really hard time stopping the pass so far this season, and that certainly has played out in the 2 Toronto games.
Now, on the bright side for the Argos defense, again, for the second week in a row, the opposing team could not even begin to run the football. Kevin Brown, I think, is one of the best backs in the CFL. He's a really good runner. He's got great vision. He's so hard to keep track of. He's got also misleading strength. Like, he can drive forward. 7 carries for 27 yards. That was it. Leake had 1 carry for 6 yards. But if you are giving up 30-something yards rushing, you've done something right. So while, yes, there were 342 passing yards, there were only 360-something yards of total offense. So 370 yards of total offense. So 36 points is a lot, but 27 yards rushing, I will take every time. That front 4, even without Flo Remolade out there, really did kind of dictate the pace. But I thought they missed Flo a little bit on that pass rush. Maybe those couple of those near misses end up in sacks if Remolade is out there.
All right, we ready for our award winners?
Yeah, let's get into players of the game and our plays of the game. So who do you have as your player of the game, JB?
Well, as much as it pains me to not award it to a defensive player, I do have to give the props to Dukes. The pressure is on him as the quarterback. He matched the wily veteran touchdown for touchdown. He didn't blink. When they had drives that didn't work, it didn't get to him. He played a terrific game. He outdueled McLeod.
And it's not necessarily through the
That's
stats.
pretty damn spectacular.
Like he didn't have 350 yards passing, but he was leading those drives. Those yards go to him. He's the one out there, steering the ship. And so,
I don't think they found a DB that they could throw 200 yards against on Edmonton.
No, like they did, although they did pick on Kai Gray when he seemed to lose his cool a little bit. Kai Gray, who's a great corner, he lost his cool. He got a 15-yard penalty that was also a pretty significant moment in the game. And they went right after him a couple plays later and found, I don't even remember which touchdown that was. There were so many. It was the Coxie touchdown. DeMonte Coxie got in behind Gray, and he'd been all over Coxie all night. Coxie had been largely invisible. Suddenly there he is for a 36-yard touchdown. And that's again, Duke's kind of using his brain. He had another play too where they went quick. It was 2nd and 1, and he immediately got guys to the line of scrimmage because he knew Edmonton didn't have their big bodies out there. They weren't going to be able to stop a 1-yard run with the personnel they had. So, yeah, I know we're singing Dukes' praise, but I love it from you because you weren't a believer in Dukes. You were very skeptical of him coming into this season, even in preseason, and you have completely changed your tune based on his play.
He has sold me. He's a player.
My player of the game is going to be Kadeem Carey. I love the passion that he's running with. He's not the kind of back that you expect to be bowling guys over, but he is running like that kind of back. He's got speed. He can get to the outside. He's got bounce. We know that. His speed has really impressed me, but it's the gusto that he's running with. He is hitting the hole at 100 miles an hour, whether it was on that touchdown run, whether it was even on, there was a couple 2-yard gains where he just went in there like gangbusters and was not gonna get stopped in his tracks. He was gonna, at the very least, drag a defender a couple yards. I love how he's running the ball. And he's a pretty good receiver out there too. He had 3 catches for 17. One of these is going to break at some point because he's got that elusiveness. When you get him out in open space, one of those is going to turn into a huge play. So I'm just waiting for that as well. For play of the game, where are you going for that one, JB?
Well, I mean, in some ways, to play the game is the DeBlanco flag. Because really, Edmonton has a chance to get the ball back there and to go down for the win, and they just basically smashed all chance of it. But if I'm not going to give it to an Edmonton player, I think connected to that, my play of the game would be Haggerty's punt that he coffin cornered right down to the 1-yard line, and thankfully Leake stepped out of bounds before reversing it for a touchdown.
That's a very good hipster pick for play of the game, a punt that rolled to the 1-yard line. But that, you're not wrong. It was a very good play. It was a great punt, and that completely, that could have been if he returns that to the 40, and maybe this is a very different finish.
The thing that would make me crazy about DeBlanco is I'm sure they did not have a block on. Because you wouldn't. There would be no point of blocking the football there. You just need a field goal to win.
I'm not
sure.
I'm
sure the special teams for Edmonton did not have a block on.
I actually think they might have. No, I'm not positive though, because there was twice that they came after it. There was once where it was his only bad punt of the day where they almost got there from the edge. They may have had a block on in this one too. I'm not positive because if it was one of the plays where they had 2 back, then no. But
I give that to the coach. That's if they did, that's a mistake at that point in the game.
Yeah, I rarely like going after it because you so infrequently get there, and
especially
so
when
often have penalties
thrown for 400 yards.
I know.
Like all you need is the ball back, and they just shot. Anyways,
for my play of the game, I am going with a lot more obvious play of the game. It was the Rasheed Bailey touchdown catch. I just thought that showed a real level of confidence, and Dukes was feeling it. I felt after that play, even though there was still a lot of game left to be played, the way he's seeing the field, to have the wherewithal to bring in an extra blocker to pick up that blitz, to know he's got to buy himself time against that coverage, and to know that he's going to have Rasheed Bailey in the end zone. To me, that just everything about that play told me that Cameron Dukes is not going to let his team lose this game. And so it wasn't what decided it per se, but to me, that was a massive play in this outcome.
Hey, how about that successful challenge?
I know, Coach Dinwiddie, just to run some of these numbers here, because it is mind blowing how like the luck that Coach Dinwiddie has had in challenges. In 2022, Dinwiddie was 2 of 13 in challenges. Last year, he was 1 of 9 in challenges. He came in today 0 of 1. And when he threw that challenge flag, I thought, oh no. But it was such a crucial moment in the game. And he was right. It just so rarely seems to go his way. He's often right, but it's on a call that just won't, it's just not going to get overturned from what you can see. And this time it did get overturned. That was a massive thing. So he's 50%, which is a career high for Coach Dinwiddie in challenge flags. So maybe this will give him some more enthusiasm for throwing that red flag more often. We'll see. But yeah, we got to give him props for hitting that one for sure.
Great call. And yeah, it was a big moment.
Well, that will just about do it for us on this post-game reaction episode of the X's and Argos podcast. The Toronto Argonauts 39, the Edmonton Elks 36 from BMO Field. We've got a short week this week as the Argos host the undefeated Montreal Alouettes in a battle of the 2 undefeated teams in the CFL, and that is Friday night. 3rd straight home game right here at BMO Field. Look for us with our pregame walkthrough sometime midweek. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see you.
Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe.